I'm recording. How about John Bostow talking about me in the third person? Yeah, that's really good. And then a cautionary tale. But went to eBay and I bought some stuff. Some of the things pretty pleased with. Camp Photon wire gate. See the wire? Gate carabiners. And for rock climbers, these be considered life support. But tree people, gear's a little heavier, a little more secure. Locking. See that green thing? You have to push it in, twist it, and activate it. Whereas these wire gates, but yeah, for slings or whatever. You know, you can never have too many carabiners or caraboos. The next up is I figured, I mean, what harm is it going to be? I'm shopping for just a rigging line, just a rope, you know, and I don't deal with heavy loads anymore. You know, the most I'm dealing with, a couple 100 pounds maybe. So I can get by with some eBay rope. So I picked up this half-inch, 200-foot hank of rope, and they called it climb line, which is an utter joke. Don't climb on it. Rated over 6,000 pounds, which means 10%. That's your working limit. Over 600 pounds, so that's good. But a little on the stiff side, so it's hard to tie knots, but I have no doubt that it could support 200 pounds. I'm not going to climb on it. Even dynamic, you know, you drop and whatever, and there's a shock load. But I'm sure this half-inch orange stuff, which is stiffer than wire cable, hard to tie knots with, give yourself arthritis, is good enough for my purposes. And at $38, free shipping, you know, I don't mind cutting it into bite-sized lengths. I was thinking of maybe like a 120 and then an 80 for various things. But yeah, no way would I climb on that junk. Name brand only, Yale, Samson, you know, whatever you get through Bartlett, Arborist Supplies, or Cheryl, or Tree Stuff, or anything. When you're dealing with your life support, I mean, speaking for me, name brand, real companies that I've heard of before. No way would I buy a saddle, an anonymous saddle. It's not like my $85 John Cutter chainsaw, which is the best buy in a long time. I'm not hanging from it, you know what I mean? But that's enough of that. I'm finally replacing my janky I call it a come along. Some people call it a power pole. But this thing is so loose, when I'm ratcheting majestically my stump grinder up the ramp into my pickup truck bed, this thing is so worn that whole thing goes sideways, and this pawl almost goes over the little notchy things. So it's like, nah, that'd be a stupid way to get hurt, having like some chintzy thing when I can replace it. So I wound up running to Tractor Supply and buying this right off the bat. It's got heavier cable. It has pawls on both sides, so it's a little more balanced. And I actually like this little clicky thing that disengages it so you can pull the thing out. You know, for 49 bucks, keeping my life intact, you know, it was well worth it. The only thing I don't like are those little, what do you call those, little split rings or whatever they are on those pins. I'm going to replace that with pins that have cotter pins. I don't like the idea of one of those things falling off and me not noticing it and the stump grinder rolling back on me. I mean, what price safety, you know what I mean, Jelly Bean? I had to do some modification because this one, I don't know, what is it, 2 tons or something like that. Stump grinder's nowhere near that. There was a pulley in this one, then the cable went around and attached to this. So it was kind of a 2-to-1, 6-foot pulling, but I needed 12-foot cable to reach from the front of my bed where I attach it down to the stump grinder. So turned it into 12-foot. But I'm happy about that. I don't need to worry about it anymore. It was kind of eating at me. Because I'm safety-minded. That's why, generally speaking, I don't get too injured. Speaking of which, I get entertained. I hate saying it, but it's true. You know, like tree cutting fails. You know, where people do things that aren't wise and they're not using safety protocols. But this is sad. And this should be a cautionary tale. Recently, within 20 miles, a local 12-year-old boy was killed by a falling tree. And the details I have is there was a 12-year-old boy and his friend, and then an adult. I don't know the relationship. They're not really disclosing that. And the story is that the chainsaw was stuck, possibly in the back cut. You cut out the little pie, the little face cut that will close as the tree falls, and then there's a hinge behind it. And you cut the back cut, not angled, no, straight across. With an angled cut, it does a few things. There's weird forces at work. It can snap the hinge, and you don't have control of how close you can get, you know, unless you're like Yoda, using the force to zero in on that. Because either it's going to be too high or too low. Not good. Straight back cut. And the tree can't fall back anyway. It's sitting on itself. But chainsaw was stuck. And so the guy hooked up like a tow strap to the tree. Tied the other into his pickup truck. Tree came down and crushed a 12-year-old boy. Oh, conjecture, maybe the fellow was worried about his chainsaw falling a foot to the ground, so he had the little boy holding, so when the tree started falling, he could pull it out. Bad idea. You know, you and I, we understand that the only thing predictable about trees is that they're unpredictable. You know what I mean? Might be hollow in the center, could barber chair, could do all sorts of things. You know, if it's a 60-foot tree, let's be safe. The nearest spectator should be 120 feet away, so boom, the tree can't hit them. No way, no how do you have anyone near the trunk of the tree except for the cutter. Exceptions might be if you are truly a professional, you know what you're doing, you have to have somebody down there for some purpose. The other one was a UPS driver driving down the road, and this guy cut a tree and dropped it in the road, hit the truck, and the UPS driver's still in a coma. If you have to, and we've had to do that before, drop a tree quickly in the road, you watch for traffic, waiting for a blank, gonna cut the tree down, you have people stopping traffic. Not a little cone, not a sign, but people actually standing there stopping traffic. You really have to wonder about some people. And especially when you go to these arborist sites and all these other things. I've been cutting with the chainsaw for 40 years. We've all heard it before. Doesn't mean you learned right. Well, with that, my friends, I'm going to draw this to a close and maybe get, this is wonderful. Let's end it on a bright note. We found it was tart cherry concentrate, right? It's a bottle about yay tall. $23, which seems like a lot, but it doesn't take much concentrate. You just pour a little bit in your water cup, put the water in there. Great stuff. And it's lasted us a month and a half. Month and a half of drinking goodness for $23. Man, and it's probably good for you too. Yeah. Like a cat dragging a mouse to the porch. Look at me new come along. 100% pure safety right there, especially when I put the pins with cotter pins in there.